My name is Justine Nakase, and I taught at Linfield last year in the theater department, and I'm now currently the director of Ground Zero 2021, which is a performance art installation that will be happening this Saturday, September 18th in the Art Squad. The show is about the long legacy of 9/11. So it is a series of 4 installations that will be, manned by performers between 1 and 4. So it's a durational performance, and each of the installations look at a different aspect of the impact that 9/11 has had on our lives today, and kind of uncovering those histories and looking at them a little bit more critically. The process for Ground Zero 2021 has been one of devising, so it's not kind of your traditional approach to theater where a playwright writes a play and a director approaches it, talks to designers, and they stand everything up, and then they bring in the actors. Instead, it's much more collaborative process. So we started out with an idea, a concept that we wanted to explore. We did a whole bunch of research. We created these ideas of what we wanted these installations to look like. And then when we brought the actors into the room, the actors became part of that collaboration. We discussed how do we want to use their bodies along with the materials in the installations. And so everybody has been throwing ideas in. So that's been really exciting to see. My hopes for the show are really for people to think critically about the ways in which our lives continue to be impacted. A lot of the students that I am working with weren't even born when 9/11 happened, so a lot of the things that we're discussing are things that they grew up with. And when you grow up with something, sometimes you assume that they are natural or given or must always be. And when you can trace it back to a certain point in time, especially one that is as close to time as 20 years ago, and say that this is the starting point and that before this it used to be different, it opens up the possibility to revise how we do things, to rethink how we do things, and it reminds us that things do not have to be the way that they are. So the challenges are really on the performer's shoulders. It's a durational piece, which means that they are out there for 4 hours. So actually it's 1 to 5, I misspoke earlier. They're out there for 4 hours, and they are constantly performing these small acts of repetition. So the picture that you see if you show up at 1 o'clock will be different than the ending picture at 5 o'clock, because things will have been moved, things will have accumulated, things will have been stripped down. That is a marathon performance. So really thinking about the actors' health and safety, ensuring that we build in rests and breaks. The weather is going to be a question. So I think all those kind of those mundane challenges, but that really end up being so pivotal to an experience. I think that's the biggest thing, is just making sure that we are looking out for the performers, since we are asking a lot of them in this performance. My favorite thing about doing the piece is just being back in a live theater. It has been such a long time since I have seen people. I have seen a ghost light. Since I've been able to work with bodies in space, I had some really great experiences doing Zoom theater over COVID, but there's something about the liveness, the proximity, the energy that happens between performers, between an audience and the performers, that you just can't replicate. And so that has been such a joy to have back. And even though, it's great that it'll be an outdoor performance, so we are following safety procedures and COVID protocols, but even, just to be in the same room as other people has been really just such a gift and a pleasure that I never thought I would recognize in the way that I do now. I think people should come see the show because it'll be very different than a lot of work that people might see and especially associate with the theater. Performance art has a really rich history, but it also tends to be quite avant-garde or quite, on the margins. And so it's a very different experience to see kind of a sculptural piece with live performers interacting with it versus, a Shakespeare play. So I think it'll be really interesting and novel just in the sense of the form that it's presented in, and then also marveling at the kind of virtuosity of these students doing this for 4 hours straight. But I also think that it really presents a lot of important questions that, last weekend with the anniversary of 9/11 was really a time for memorial and remembrance, and that space is important. And I think the reason we wanted to have it the weekend after is to then say, okay, and then now what, right? So what is the history of that legacy? What have we inherited from that moment, and how do we want to move forward?